Turn that volume up. You know you want it. It's time for Women's Basketball TV with former NCAA champion, WNBA champion, business mogul, and national TV personality. Let's get it.
Hey, what's happening, y'all? So I started the series last summer with the WNBA called The Morning After, where I would talk about the games on the weekend, bringing us into the following week of games that we're going to be looking forward to. And so I'm going to continue that with women's hoops in the NCAAs, and I'm going to start with, of course, the Texas-Kansas State game because it was also alumni weekend at my alma mater. Let's jump into the Texas-K-State game, and we'll keep it rolling. So let's talk about the game. Obviously, we knew this game was going to be interesting. Texas at number 12, Kansas State at number 2. Similar situations. Ayoka Lee out for K-State, senior center, who has been playing really, really well and causes extreme challenges for teams to defend her. She's very skilled. She's also very tall. And you've got Rory Harmon out for Texas. All-American candidate, having the best season ever when she went down with an ACL injury in December. So both teams looking to reestablish and even in many cases redefine their identity without those players who were truly defining players in their lineups, their respective lineups. So K-State looked a little shaky at the beginning. Texas took a 6-0 run, a 6-0 lead to start the first quarter. And it looked like it was going to be that kind of game. And then K-State, well coached by Jeff Mittie, very good team, very veteran team. They always feel like they are warriors when you're playing against the Wildcats. And so they caught up, and then it became a game. Texas, on the other hand, if Rory Harmon is out, of course, we know we've been talking about this for weeks. Who's playing point guard? It's Madison Booker. She's amazing, but she is a freshman. So freshman will freshman. And Madison Booker is no exception, not one bit. She did some great things yesterday, late, but early she was slipping and sliding and passing the ball to places. We're like in the stands like, what is going on? What's going on? But the great thing about Madison, and the coach for K-State, Jeff Mittie, said this. He said, not many freshmen could recover from a start like Maddie Booker had. And it was so true. It's like, oh, Maddie. But she kept her head up. She acknowledged her mistakes. She kept talking to her teammates. And it's a wonder to watch her because she's been asked to do something. Let's think about this, y'all. Whether you play basketball or not, you're playing a sport. You shine at your position. An injury happens. Something happens that dictates for you to go to a different position. Now, it's a very different situation when Maddie Booker plays point guard in the offseason with AAU and club basketball, because that's kind of like pickup. Yes, everybody plays all the positions. But when it comes to college basketball, the point guard position, the prize position, is a very challenging position. You got leadership, you got, playing, running the offense, communication, getting on people, congratulating people, supporting people. And Madison Booker has to do all of this, and it's taken her out of her natural position of being a playmaker from the wing. Can she play the point? Texas has, I think, lost 2 games since Rory Harmon has been out, maybe 2 games. And Madison Booker has been at the point, and she is getting acclimated to that, but she has not folded. And what I love that I saw yesterday in the alumni game, what I call the alumni game, we didn't play, obviously that would have been funny, but the game on alumni day is that Vic was able to give Madison breathers by putting her in other positions. She got to play the 2, she got to play the 3, which is the thing I wanted to see happen early on. It's like Vic was like, look, so we got to neutralize this point guard position. Maddie, you're gonna have to do it. And he gets on her and he's supportive of her. And I think that's what makes it work for that relationship. Vic is a very tough, demanding coach, and players who come here know that, and they love him because they know that he's going to love them hard, but they know he's going to coach them hard, but they know that he cares. And you guys have heard the axiom, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yes, every coach is not for everybody. We know that. But what makes that relationship work is that Vic believes heavily in Maddie. She knows it. She knows she's not going to get pulled for mistakes, so she can play freely and more confidently. And we saw her start to do Maddie Booker things later in the game that really took Texas to the next level. Of course, at the end of the game, they started fouling Texas to get to the free throw line. It was like a 5-point game with like 9 seconds left. And then Texas obviously was able to pull away the victory. But great outing on Alumni Weekend in Austin, Texas. Super proud of our team. And now let's look at other teams around women's basketball. So Virginia Tech was able to eke one out against UNC. Virginia Tech, Georgia Moore, we know we love her. I've loved her. I watched Virginia Tech. I spent some time at Virginia and got to see the ACC up close. And Georgia Moore had 21 points, played 45 minutes. Obviously, we know that went into OT. Have 11 assists. We always start with Deja Kelly. UNC Deja Kelly played 45 minutes. Played the entire game, clearly 7 rebounds from the guard position. Not too many assists for Deja. 1 assist, but Alyssa Utsby did have 5 assists, played 40 minutes, 16 points, 10 points, I should say, and 16 rebounds. That's crazy. So that's what's happening. So that's what's happening in ACC with Virginia Tech and UNC. I did see the Indiana-Ohio State game. And it was a close game. I love the Big Ten. What I love about the Big Ten is that you never know who's going to win that game. You never know who the favorite is in that game because it's such a super competitive conference. Mackenzie Holmes had 14 points, played 33 minutes, 9 rebounds. Sarah Scalia had 25 points, 4 rebounds, played 38 minutes. Pretty balanced scoring there. When you look at, and that's for Indiana, obviously. You look at Ohio State, J.C. Sheldon had 25 points and 38 minutes. Who else we got? Celeste Taylor, former Texas player before she went to Duke, and now at Ohio State, played 30 minutes, only had 5 points, but had 4 rebounds from the guard position. Let's see what old big girl is doing. Cody McMahon had 20 points, 7 rebounds in 30 minutes in the Buckeyes' victory over Indiana. USC coming off a victory over Stanford, another victory over Cal, 79-69. Juju although she didn't have a 51 piece like she did against Stanford, she did have a strong game. She had 29 points in 40 minutes, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. For those of you who are not familiar with Juju Watkins, you deserve to see a game with this outstanding freshman. You got to check her out. On Cal's side of the ball, early in the game, Cal took it down low, going inside, not only just from a post player, feeding the post player, but also taking it off the bounce, and really kept this game close by mixing it up offensively. Let's move on to Colorado and Washington. The Buffaloes won this one 80-57. with 21 points for Aaronette Vonleh. And Maddie Nolan had 11 in 31 minutes. The things you have to watch out for Colorado is that when I look at their stat sheet, their box score afterwards, the number of players that they are playing and the kinds of minutes that players are getting on that team is very dangerous in a good way. I'm looking at this. Now, yeah, the score was 80-57, and that could have something to do with why so many players play. But if you will really pay attention to their box score, most of the time, you're seeing 8-9 players play. And that's not that common for top 25 teams. That's why injuries, when you get these injuries, they decimate the roster because coaches play these same players over and over. They're playing 30 minutes. They're playing 35 minutes, as I read with the UNC box score. Players playing 45 minutes, never leaving the floor. That's going to catch up with you. One thing I learned from our national championship team at Texas when we went undefeated my senior year was we had 8 or 9 players averaging 13 points. I want you to let that sink in for a second, right? Like most people have somebody's averaging 20, somebody's averaging 18, 17, or 30 and 25 or whatever. The reason we were so dangerous that year wasn't just because of our starting 5. I was a starter, All-Americans in our starting lineup. but it was because of our second five. Our second five would have been starters at any other top 5 program in the country. They could have gone anywhere, but they chose to come to Texas. The freshman on our team that year was MVP of the Final Four. So when I look at these Colorado numbers and minutes, when I examine multiple games with them and I see the way their coach is dispersing those playing minutes, that playing time, I said, oh yeah, Colorado, if they can keep the pieces together and play well down the stretch, they're going to be dangerous, just as they were in last season. They almost got there last season because coach understands you can't wear people out. You have these opportunities to monitor these minutes and give people rest in interesting ways. And I love what she's doing with the playing time for the Colorado Buffaloes, not just in blowout games, but across their entire season. Utah playing Washington State. By the way, Utah, you guys know I did a feature on Alyssa Peely. You should check that out on the channel. It's an amazing conversation I had with her. Speaking of Peely, she's played 32 minutes, had 15 points and 7 rebounds versus Washington State. Jenna Johnson played 36 minutes, had 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. So Utah continues to stay consistent with a victory over Washington State, 73-61. My old point guard, speaking of our 34-0 team, my point guard, Cami Etheridge, is the head coach at Washington State. And that was a team last year, if y'all remember, who almost had a Cinderella season for advancing very dangerously close to the very end of women's basketball. They had a really great run and lost at the end. Lost a close one at the end. But anyway, Washington State, my point guard is the head coach there, Cami Etheridge, 20 minutes and 4 points for Beyonce B. Cami also, like Colorado, plays players, disperses those playing minutes so as not to kill players. She played 8 players in that game versus Utah, anywhere from 20 minutes to 37 minutes. But I see balanced scoring when I look at Washington State's box score. 15 points from Bella. Eleonora Villa at 15 points. I love Tara Wallach's 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 37 minutes. So that's Utah defeating Washington State by 12, 73-61. UCLA Stanford, 80-60. Stanford put it on UCLA. I think UCLA is having a moment without Lauren Betts right now, and that's to be understood. You got a player who has had tremendous impact since transferring from Stanford to UCLA, and now they are without her, and it shows. Stanford, on the other hand, had some tremendous performances from Cameron Brink, who had 19 points and 19 rebounds and 2 assists in 33 minutes. Cameron Brink really starting to, and I don't mean just really starting right now, just this season in general, in the absence of some great players who went to the WNBA, Haley Jones. Folks were wondering what Cameron Brink would do, what Stanford would do, and they are playing, they're playing well. After the loss to USC, where Juju put it on them with 51 points, we're going to keep talking about that. We've seen Stanford bounce back, and Cameron Brink is having an All-American, of course, season, and even in some cases in the conversation for Player of the Year. Let's talk UConn. UConn, folks were wondering whether UConn would ever bounce back from the injury of AZ Fudd, and I think they're answering that question. They defeated the Red Storm of St. John's yesterday, 78-63. Let's look at this box score real quickly. Aaliyah Edwards, who in my opinion, most not talked about big girl in our women's game, that is having a great season, played 39 minutes, 33 points, and 13 rebounds. I believe she is the key to Connecticut's success this season, running deep in the playoffs. Paige McBuckets, I like to call her, 26 points in 37 minutes, 3 assists, and 5 rebounds. And then production drops off considerably for the Connecticut Huskies. You got KK Arnold with 6 points in 39 minutes. Ashlyn Shade, 36 minutes and 5 points. That might become an issue later. You're starting to see teams with 3 or 4 players in double figures. Those teams, and they're spreading out those minutes, like I said earlier about Colorado, and Washington State, you're going to see those teams with the ability to advance a little bit farther, even just before we get to the playoffs, even just in their tournaments, because they're not wearing players down and relying so heavily on two players. But Connecticut, a winner over St. John's, 63. Let's see what St. John's was able to do. St. John's with a really balanced box score. Jillian Archer had 10 points in 28 minutes. Unique Drake had 14 points in 39 minutes. Jayla Donald, 10 points in 34. You see where I'm going? And Bernia Mayo had 16 points in 34 minutes. That's the kind of box score you want. Now, they weren't successful against Connecticut, but they did have the balanced scoring and contributions when you look at their box score. And of course, there were other games around women's basketball yesterday. Ole Miss fell to South Carolina 85-56. Baylor beat Houston 83-60. Oregon State defeated Oregon 64-60. Syracuse over Boston College 75-63. Creighton over Butler 75-65. LSU seemed to be getting back into it 106-66 over Florida. Notre Dame over Pittsburgh 78-53. And that's going to do it for Around the World of Women's Basketball. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to Women's Basketball TV with Fran Harris, the most provocative and entertaining women's basketball show on earth. Be sure to click that like, share, and notification button so you don't miss a moment. We'll see you tomorrow.